It says, a number of seriously interested amateur astronomers have tested the new Exodus refractor telescope. All right, so what part of the argument is this first part?
Background information.
Yeah, background information. We're not trying to prove it. We're just saying, like, hey, this is what's happened. With it, they were able to observe in crisp detail planetary features that were seen only as fuzzy images in their 8-inch, approximately 20 centimeters, Newtonian telescope, even though the 8-inch telescope with their wider apertures gathered more light than the 4-inch, approximately 10 centimeter Exodus. What part of the argument is this next sentence?
I would say the premise.
Well, yeah, it's premise, but it's still kind of like just background information, right? It's just detail. It's just kind of saying like, hey, this is what happened. Like, hey, this is like we're just explaining stuff. But then we go on to say, given these amateur astronomers' observational findings, any serious amateur astronomer ought to choose the Exodus if she or he is buying a telescope for planetary observation. So, what is our conclusion?
So, any serious amateur astronomer out to
Yeah.
shoot
So, this is our conclusion. And then, what kind of question is this?
an argument,
Yeah, it's an argument, but what kind of question is this?
a flaw,
Nope. What question did the video talk about? If
weaken,
weaken. Yeah, most seriously weaken. So it's a weaken question. So what are we trying to weaken?
the conclusion.
Yeah, the conclusion. So before we actually read the answer choices, we want to predict something that what would, if this were true, would it weaken this conclusion here? So we're trying to say any serious amateur astronomer ought to choose the Exodus if she or he is buying a telescope for planetary observation.
So I would say that I can buy a telescope even though I'm not serious about planetary observations.
Okay, but our conclusion is about this. So we're talking about our conclusion is specifically talking about those that are interested in this.
Okay.
So what part of this conclusion are we trying to weaken?
Buying a telescope.
What we're trying to weaken the idea that they ought to choose the Exodus.
Okay.
And so why does our argument, so taking a step back, why does our argument think that we ought to choose the Exodus?
Because it's better.
Better how?
Um, it gives like crispy detail of
Yes. Okay. So what we know so far is that hey, the Exodus, like any serious um amateur ought to choose the Exodus between these two because it's in crisp detail or whatever.
yeah.
How would we weaken this then to show that they ought to not choose the Exodus? What would be a reason to weaken it?
So it doesn't give like crisp detail or like there's something wrong
Okay.
about it.
Yes, it's not the crisp detail. We have to just accept that as true. But if we could, maybe there's some, but I like your second part there where you said there's something else that's wrong with it, right? Like if we can show like, hey, yeah, it's best for this thing, but if we can bring in, remember that alternative explanation of why it's
Yeah.
bad, that would weaken this argument, right?
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead and pick one of these. And all right, sorry. So knowing that now, go ahead and tell me what you would choose between the two that you were narrowing it down between. Okay. And what was the other one that you were choosing between again?
C.
C. Okay. So C says many serious amateur astronomers have no intention of buying a telescope for planetary observation. Why is C wrong?
So I would think that C is wrong because serious amateur astronomers do in fact need like planetary observation telescopes, but I'm not sure.
Okay, because it's wrong because we don't care about those that are buying a telescope for reasons other than planetary observations. Our conclusion is just talking about those that are buying it for planetary
Yeah.
observation. So it's like, okay, cool. Just because there are people out there that buy it for a different purpose, like that's not who we're talking about. Why is A, D, and E wrong? So start with A for me.
Okay, telescopes of certain types will not perform well unless they have been precisely collimated, a delicate adjustment requiring deftness. So, first off, I thought A was wrong because it introduced like other information, yet it was not like it didn't have anything to do with our conclusion or what we had to weaken.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what is this? Telescopes of certain types? Like what types? We're talking specifically about Exodus, so it can't be
Yeah.
A. All right, what about D?
Image quality is only one of the several different factors that taken together should determine the choice of the telescope for planetary observation. So that's our answer.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Good. Sorry, I meant D as in dog.
The comparisons made by the amateur astronomers were based on observations made during several different observation sessions. So that could be right, but we weren't talking about several different observation sessions.
Well, just because they were okay, I don't think this can be right because just because they were made during different observation sessions, that doesn't weaken it. Like maybe that actually strengthens it because they did it on multiple occasions and it worked in like different scenarios. All right, and what about E?
The substance used to make the lenses of Exodus telescopes differs from that used in the lenses of other telescopes. Um, so what I thought in this one was that I don't care about other telescopes. If it were Newtonian, I would have kind of, thought about it, but that was my reasoning in E.
Yeah, and just because this is different, does that mean bad?
No.
No, different is not bad. And yeah, so our answer is going to be B. And so why is B correct?
So I feel like it weakens it because so any serious amateur astronomer ought to choose the Exodus if he is buying a telescope for planetary, but then like I feel like because they focus on how the image quality of the Exodus is way better
Yeah,
than
what
the
yeah, what B is saying is like, hey, image quality is only one of the reasons. So we know that Exodus is good in one reason, but since
yeah,
these other ones, how do we know that Exodus is better in all these other reasons too?
yeah.
What weakens it by kind of like making us raise our eyebrows of like, well, yeah, it's good in this, but we don't know about everything else.
Mhm.
Awesome.